What I'm going to try to do is make a few steps. I'm going to try and make some steps from this brown to red and from this middle brown to green. And I have a cloth over here on the side that I keep cleaning my palette knife off on. So here you should have a green brown, potentially starting to look a little bit like camouflage. These colors right here, generally the one that's like one step away from my two primaries mixed together, I often find those to be some of my favorites. So I'm really enjoying that. Taking that pretty brown, going toward a brick color here. Giving myself a little more room. Now you can grab from this pile of paint to influence your red here, or I can come over here on the side and take from some of this green. I usually decide on how much paint I have in each pile. I don't really want to pull from here if this is already a small pile of paint, because when I go to make my painting, I'll run out. Now see how I mix these two and they're very similar, practically identical. Just scoop this up. I could keep adding red to this, but it's dark enough with the green, I think, that I'm going to end up using a lot of red to influence it, so it might just be easier to make this little pile over here bigger. Split some of it off there. Now see how there's a bigger jump between here and here? Just going to grab a little green and deepen that. And a little more. That's good. I like that string of colors together. So once you have your steps from green to red, the next step is going to be to tint. So what I want you to remember with tinting is that you could go many steps out to a white from here. You could even do 10 steps between green and white, or slightly off green and white. That could be a little crazy making at this point. So my suggestion is try 1 or 2 steps. It depends what you're painting too. If you're painting something like a shell or skull or skin tone, where you're going to need a lot of lighter colors, then you might want to do more steps of white. But if you're just making a color card and this is a practice session, then what I would encourage you to do is start with a little less white at first. So one step out here from the green, a little bit of white. I think we're gonna get some real mint here. Yep. So see how that's one value step lighter. And I pull a little bit of this out here. I think I might do 3 steps today for white. Now, this is really light in comparison. So just come up here and grab a little more of this green. This would be the time if you have a little spritz bottle of water, a mister, a plant type mister. You just wet your palette down so it doesn't dry up on you too fast. And why not one very light white? Rule of thumb, I try to do two lighter values. I'm pretty happy with these 2 actually. And then just drop to the next one. Some students and painters love this exercise. Other people tolerate it. And some people think it's too painful and they just refuse to do it. Especially if you're a painter and you already know intuitively how to mix color, you've done your trial and error and made your time. Very rarely does somebody that I know that's successful with painting and has been painting for a long time want to spend the time looking into all the little nuances of these values. It would be like if you grew up speaking Spanish with a native speaker and then you know how to speak it, but you decide to go back to school to learn the basics the way we teach Spanish in an American school. You're not going to want to do that. That's a lot of time learning the formation and the grammar. Most people wouldn't want to do that, I think. But if you're trying to learn how to speak Spanish and you're not immersed in the culture, going to school to learn a new language is a great way to start. And they pull it all apart like this. And you look at all the little pieces and systems and grammar, and you try to get your head around it. To me, I think this is easier than learning a language. But we're all wired a little differently. I really like these colors. And we'll pull them out from the darks. So, just kind of pulling these across and adding white to it. I'm not going another step across. Doesn't seem necessary. So I have 2 white values pulled out from there. And we're on to the next value, color. Got our brick red. Scrape, scrape, scrape. I was ripping paper this morning, and I did a little video of it to post to my Instagram account. Oh, getting paint all over my table and my pieces of paper. See, I made these pieces of paper to paint as color cards. Now I've already got paint on it. The paper that I'm gonna paint my color cards on is Reeves BFK, which is a printmaking paper. I like to use it because it doesn't warp and buckle. I don't gesso it before I paint these paint chips on it. I used to, and now in the long term I just realized it's kind of an unnecessary step. If you don't want to buy Reeves BFK, or you don't have it at home, canvas paper is fine. You can even do these little color swatches in a sketchbook if it's big enough. I think heavier paper than sketchbook paper is usually helpful, but you know, use what you have. And the block format that I do helps me to organize it in explaining it to students. But when I started making these, I just made notes on the sides of my paintings or prints that I would make on the print press. And I had a bunch of random scraps of paper with little paint swatches all over the place. I was not that organized, although I find it extremely helpful in teaching to make a series of cards that I can pull out and show to people. And what's nice about these cards is that you can hold them up and look at what you're looking at, whether you're trying to paint from a photo, you have a model, like a person's modeling for you, or a landscape out your window, a still life. So here you can see these lighter values across here, from the cadmium red to the green. And I'm just going to flip this page over. And we're going to quickly paint some darks. I didn't want this video to be more than 30 minutes, and it's pushing. It's probably around 20 minutes right now. So I'm going to try to mix equal amounts of ultramarine blue and burnt umber to make a dark color. And actually, I'm going to pull this over into the corner because I'm going to need this area for my mixing. If this mixture leans a little more brown or a little more blue, I don't want you to worry about that. Mix it to your preference. We could do this shading with just brown or even with just blue. But what I'm trying to shoot for is something that appears almost black. And I think I managed to do that today. So let's get that scraped over there. And then quickly, if you're making these color cards and it gets just too tedious and bogged down, the shading dark is not as important as learning how to tint with light. If anything, I think I tend to shade, I put too much dark in too fast, and I lose the baseline of my original color that I wanted to pull from. So I'm going to try to hold back on that a little bit and not make these squares on the shading side all turn black right away. If you've done this before, you know what I'm talking about. If this is the first time you've ever mixed color or made a color card, you're not going to necessarily know. What is important about shading dark is that I think when people learn to paint, they think, I want the color to be darker, so I just add black, like out of the tube. But black out of the tube makes your color grayer. It doesn't necessarily deepen the intensity, and so I want you to use this mixture of ultramarine blue and burnt umber because it's just more forgiving than black. A Mars black or an ivory black, a black that comes right out of the tube, is really great for painting black tires or a black shirt or somebody that has black hair or the pupil of an eye. But for mixing it with another color to try to deepen it, it can really gray things out. So I encourage you to drop your shades down to their darker effect with a mixture of burnt umber and ultramarine blue. Just quickly getting these pulled across here. Do you have to mix out a palette like this every time you paint? No. Do I mix out a palette like this every time I paint? Not exactly like this. I often do at least one row of some kind of complementary, I don't know, discussion on my palette, because I think that I tend to be a little lazy as a painter, and I'm in a rush, I'm in a hurry to describe what I'm looking at, and then I just mix a few colors that I can immediately see, and I miss all these nuances of what's going on. As a new painter who's trying to understand what colors do what, I think this exercise of just mixing complementary values with their shades and tints. Tint is when you add the cadmium, or not the cadmium, the titanium white. I think that helps you to start to simulate the information in your mind of how the pigment works for each individual yellow, blue, red. Here we come down to the green. But be careful. This is a little darker than I need. I'm going to put it right here. Not to get bogged down in the process where you're like thinking to yourself, I don't have time to mix a complementary palette, so I don't have time to paint. If it comes down to choosing being able to practice painting in a shorter amount of time, just throwing some colors on there and getting at it, I want you to encourage you to take that hour and just make a painting. If you have 2 hours, play around with your palette, mix it out, experiment, make notes, make color cards. Don't think to yourself, I don't have to write this down, I'm going to remember what I did, because unless you're sharper than me, which many of you I'm sure are, my experience is I don't remember. Even now that I have all the colors memorized, I can easily do this without thinking about it. I can look at an object and know what paints to grab to make that happen. Even now that I have that, a week later, I still don't remember necessarily what blue I picked to mix a color, and then I'm guessing, unless I write myself some notes. Okay, so now I have my complementary palette. These are the tints that are lighter, shades that are darker, and I'm quickly gonna paint a color card. This color card I'm going to show you is not red to green. But here's an example of a blue to orange color card. And notice how I write the name here at the bottom and what the mixture was here at the top. I've started writing 50-50 if it's a 50% cadmium yellow and 50% cadmium red light. And I usually write tinted titanium white on this side, shaded burnt umber and ultramarine blue On this card that I'm going to paint today, I'm not going to be writing on Sharpie right away because it'll get in my way. I just want to work on painting the actual card. So the painting palette that I just mixed is going to be over here on the left. I'm going to get a brush and I'm just going to copy those squares. The one thing that I didn't do before I got started here today was get myself some water to wash my brush off in. So I think it's only a matter of time before I decide that's a problem and have to run over the sink and get some water. So I'm going to be wiping my brush to dry it off on a cloth over here on the side. But here we go with this brown red. You don't have to make perfect little boxes, just do what you can. And I'm going right for the middle of the palette to this beautiful brown. One thing about watering down your brush between colors to try to keep it clean is it can water down your paint and it'll start looking like watercolor paint instead of acrylic. It's nice to keep it pretty opaque. You see the colors differently. You can also see that my boxes aren't perfect. I'm really not a very careful painter. I want the information. One thing I can see is there's a very big jump between here and here. That's okay. It's not perfect. We're still getting the idea of how the color works. And over here, we got this right. 5 digits on a hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 colors in between. Out here on the end, this is just my Primrose cadmium paint mixed with Cerulean Blue Deep. So we got that. And I'm going to switch to another brush for my lighter colors here. Here we have cadmium red slightly tinted with white. And cadmium red with a little more white in it. Slight tint. Deeper tint. And wiping off my paintbrush. Brown red tinted. And a deeper tint. Now, there's a bigger jump between here because these two are closer. I might come back with my brush, try to lighten this one up a little bit. like that better. And there we go. Lighter tint. This one looks a lot lighter. Whoop. That's my alarm that I should have tried to have this video done in that amount of time. Didn't happen. We're going to give this a couple more minutes. I always have the feeling that you all kind of jump around these and watch what feels like useful to you and hopefully fast forward what feels a little dull or not necessary, because each of you are different. Some of you have a lot more experience than others. Some of you have taken live classes with me, many of you, and already done all these color cards on your own, but you're just watching this for a refresher. That's good. And quickly coming down across to the next step of green. I had to do a double take to make sure I was in the right place, but this feels good. And now these greens, I actually went a little further with my tinting, so just to show you, if you really enjoy doing this, you can go another step out. Next green. This is fun and bright. Let's say you're painting eucalyptus leaves. If you're painting tulips, you'd actually want this mixture with a little bit more yellow in it. If you're painting eucalyptus leaves, they're right over here. You can't get that eucalyptus color without adding a little bit of red. Next value out. I do feel like this out of the tubes mixture is a little brighter, feels a little more spring-like. I am enjoying these little white squares across the end. So I'm just going to take a minute, try and mix a couple extra and see how it goes. Oh yeah, that's nice. Those colors are worth having. All I did was just grab my brush and pull a little bit of this square in with some more white. So pretty. And we are well over 30 minutes, because color mixing always takes longer than I think. Although, telling you all about color mixing, that takes even longer, because I have to go through the motions of showing you how. That's nice. Plus then I add these extra steps in. This is a bigger jump. I'm not going to worry about that. It's enough information. It's not perfect. They're not perfect steps in between. But more importantly, rather than doing this card over and making it perfect, I know it's going to be really useful for me the way it is. So I don't want to take the time to start over and change that. Here we're coming down, these are the tints across the top. Now we're coming down to the shades. This is red shaded with the ultramarine blue and burnt umber mixture, which I generally call black. Notice it looks very similar. And this is quite a lot darker over here. But not completely black, just to give you an idea. This would be the actual mixture of ultramarine blue and burnt umber without any red in it. So you can see there's a big jump between there and there. So we're going red, we have brick red, and then I'm moving down here, and this is this one, a little dark added in it. Using a very dry brush without water. That was an accident on my part, but I'm actually kind of happy with the result of it. We're coming to this kind of little bit lighter brown. This is what I'm saying about if you feel like you have limited time, or even just as likely limited patience, and just do the color cards for the tints then. If you really love this and it's going to help your painting and you're going to take the time to do this, to have a set, you have a couple hours, then also mix the shades and paint those in, because they can be very useful too. We got brown in the middle, double checking myself and counting my steps as I come over to my palette, and I grab that brown that's one step away. Barely perceptible difference. Perceptible is a word, but I think you know what I mean. Here we go. And the deeper shade. So let's do a little experiment right here before I finish out this card. Let's say I mix this with white. I want to see what happens when I make this mixture and then tint it lighter. Get a nice gray. Depending what you're painting, that can be quite helpful. I'm going to go step back and see what this one looks like mixed with white. That involves a little bit of counting. Okay, there it is. I think that looks much more lavender. You can see the red in it. This feels a little cooler and more blue. Then I'm gonna walk myself back to this little square, and I'm gonna take that color off the palette. I'm gonna add white to that. Even warmer. Now, coming back to here, counting 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth color over from red. I have to do that or I get messed up in my program and paint the wrong colors in the wrong place, which, it'll happen. If that happens to you, let that square dry and paint it over with the color you want in a little bit. Okay, coming down through here. I'm just going to keep carrying on with this, grabbing the gray value. Sometimes they don't look that different. Sometimes there's a noticeable difference. And green. Quickly paint that square down here. Come across like that, and then I'm gonna jump up here on my palette and add a little bit of white to that. See what we have. Quite like that color too. Keep cleaning your brush off between these. We got this kind of weird Kelly green. Here's what it looks like tinted with black to shade. And next shade darker. Let's try that color tinted with white. The one thing about making these cards, and once you have them, then you have it. You write the notes on it about what color it is, and the next time you go to paint, you pull this card out and you have that information set up for you. It's just a great resource, especially at first when you're trying to get your head around all this and you feel like you don't know what you're doing. It gives you something to kind of hold on to so that you can mix your color before you start painting. Just trying to think how I want to handle this with the black color. Here's your black mixed with white. Much cooler. That blue's coming through there. Okay. Hey, thanks for watching along. Have a great day. I'll send this out. I don't think it's a perfect video, but we're not going for perfection. We're just trying to get things done, learn how to paint. So give it your best shot. Send me some emails. Let me know how it went. And I'll take a picture of this card and write the labels on it and send it along in the email. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you all.